Wolves asleep amidst the trees. Bats all are swaying in the breeze. But one soul lies anxious, wide awake, fearing all manner of ghouls, hags and wraiths. A lullaby of woe and a warning to all. Evil is evil, lesser, greater or middling. It's all the same. But what kind of evil lures in the swamps, the forests, or even in the attic in your house? In the world of The Witcher there are many creatures with many different motives. But before the world of The Witcher was created, these creatures were already mentioned in the stories of our ancestors. Creatures that prowled the forest at night, that hid in rivers and lakes, and snuck into our houses while we were sleeping. These stories were told to warn children or explain tragedies that no one could understand. And they eventually became the inspiration for the world of The Witcher. In the continent, vampires scream with voices so loud that it can shatter glass. Spirits of maidens pull men into the deep waters, and even a friendly face might be nothing more than a shapeshifter wearing someone else's skin. Wind is howling, and for your Dolly Polly, sleep has flown. And not only for your Dolly Polly, but for us as well. Hi everyone and welcome to my final video of the spooky season. This is the true Halloween special of this year because I will upload this one on the 31st of October. It was a lot of work. It took me so much time. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do it next year as well, especially since the views haven't been great. So hopefully this video will do better, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. So it's not a bad thing that it took me so much time. I also like doing it. And for this Halloween special we are gonna take a look at the creatures of the Witcher universe. You can see these creatures in the books that you see behind me, in the games of course, and also in the TV series on Netflix. I'm also wearing a Geralt of Rivia sweater, but you can't really see it on this camera. I was like, oh, I'm gonna wear my Geralt of Rivia sweater, but I'm too low in the frame, so it was a bit useless, but now you have seen it. So these creatures are based on the creatures in our mythological stories and folklore. And if you don't know what The Witcher is, well, don't worry, you can still watch this video. First of all, you missed out big time. But I will tell you a little bit about the world of The Witcher before I will talk about all the monsters and creatures. Because as I mentioned before, these creatures are part of our history, so it's still interesting to learn about them and what they meant to the people who came before. To give you a little insight to the world of The Witcher, I will give you a short summary right now. The Witcher is the story of Geralt of Rivia. He is a monster hunter for hire, but not quite human. He is shaped by cruel alchemy and relentless training. Something not everyone survives. Therefore he is called a Witcher. People in the continent need Witchers to slay their monsters, but even though the Witchers help the people, they are not respected by them. They are seen as low and deformed. Because I didn't mention this, Geralt also has cat eyes, so they are like yellow with the shape of a cat eye. And he also has silver hair. And he's a part of the School of the Wolf where he was trained, and therefore they call him the White Wolf. Geralt lives in a world full of beasts and monsters, but the monsters aren't always what you think they are. Sometimes Geralt discovers that the monsters are the humans. Geralt walks the line between sword and sorcery, contracts and conscience. He hunts monsters for coin, but every choice he makes carries a weight. He has to decide if he wants to kill, show mercy, protect the innocent or walk away. In the end, the monsters he faces aren't always the monsters with claws and fangs. If you dive deeper into the story, you will also learn that Geralt has a connection with the Child of Destiny, Ciri, and you will learn how their lives are intertwined. And you will also learn about his relationship with the sorceress Yennefer of Vengerberg. And perhaps something like this will remind you of them. So now you know a little bit more about Geralt of Rivia. And I must admit that I first watched the Netflix series. I knew about the books and about the game, and I was excited that they were gonna make a Netflix series. After that I played the game, and then I started reading the books, which I highly recommend. And after I read the books, the series was a big letdown. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna watch the new season. The books are so brilliantly written because Geralt is funny, he's intelligent, and there's a lot of magical things and political issues going on in the books. And after I read the books, I feel like the games have way more respect for the source material. The games, especially The Witcher 3, have so much detail and love in them. It looks breathtaking and the quests are so well thought out. I was totally immersed in the world and I was feeling like I was spending time with my best friends. And I don't mean playing literally with my best friends, but just with Geralt, Ciri and Yennefer. And of course other characters as well. And even though the game is 10 years old, it still holds up. So if you are a gamer and you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. The monsters in the game and also in the books have their own personality as well. Monsters and humans can both be the villains in a quest. And then it's up to you to choose the lesser evil. And every choice that you make changes the outcome of the story. It's just... I have no words. Let's toss a coin to that. Enough talking, as Geralt would say. Fascinating story. Any chance you are nearing the end? Well, for the introduction, yes, but for this video, hardly. Let's focus on some of the creatures from the Witcher universe. I can't cover them all because there are a lot of creatures with different powers and different meanings. So perhaps I will make a part 2 one day, but for now I have chosen the most important figures in the story. And if you hear noises from outside, the wind is truly howling at the moment. So I'm sorry if that annoys you. Let's open the Bestiary and find out which mythological stories from Slavic, European and even Middle Eastern cultures have inspired the monsters in Andrzej Sapkowski's stories. Hopefully Roach is not stuck on some rooftop so that we can explore the world of The Witcher and its monsters. Let's start in the area where Andrzej Sapkowski grew up. He was born in Poland, so therefore Slavic myths and legends formed the base for many of his monster characters. And I love that because you hardly hear stories from Slavic folklore. The Striga, for example, is Slavic, but it's based on Roman and Greek mythology. It's a female demon that's often compared to the Roman Greek Strix. While the Strix is more like a bird, a Striga is a demonic creature similar to a vampire. They do have something in common, they both lust for human blood. You could be born as a Striga, but you could also become one by a curse. I would not recommend it though. In the Witcher universe, the Striga looks a lot like a monster instead of a female human. She only comes out during a full moon. She's incredibly strong and fast and hates all living beings. It is not known how you could become a Striga, only that it is a curse. But if you were cursed, it was also possible to be cured. But you would need some help. They had to prevent the Striga from returning to her coffin by the third crowing of the rooster. Then the Striga would be turned into a girl or woman again. But that didn't mean that the Striga would become herself again. It was possible that the Striga turned human would still keep some of her animal behaviors. And there was also the chance that she would turn into a Striga once more. They could prevent her change by giving her a sapphire amulet to wear, and every now and then they had to burn juniper, broom and aspen in the fireplace of the girl's chamber to ward off the curse. So, as you can hear, it was not an easy task. Next up is the Leshen, another creature from Slavic folklore. In Slavic countries, the Leshen is known as the Leshy. It is a forest spirit and a guardian of the animals and trees. You could say that the Leshen is more than just a monster. It's the forest itself. It is often described as a tall, shadowy man, sometimes with horns and sometimes tree-like. It reminds me a bit of a creature I mentioned in another Halloween video of this year, the Wendigo from Native American folklore. But the Leshen is not a cursed human because of cannibalism, it's a product of nature. It is said that the Leshen could mimic voices to lure people into the woods. Eventually those people, who were often travelers, would get lost and die. The Leshen could also shapeshift into a human or an animal, but it was always bound to its forest domain. In the world of The Witcher, the Leshen is quite like the original version. Here the Leshen is portrayed as a towering, antlered creature made of wood, bone and shadow. It commands the wolves, crows and the roots of the earth. It's the master of its territory. It is usually bound to specific forests or a sacred cove. There you can find a totem that anchors the creature. If you would destroy this token, you could weaken or banish the Leshen. And in the games I always have a very hard time defeating it. So let's say it's not my favorite monster, but it's an interesting one nonetheless. Maybe even the scariest one. Let's take a closer look at the Botchling, also a creature from Slavic mythology and folklore. It is also known as a Poronik. And if you think that it is a very friendly creature, you are mistaken. It is a hostile and malicious demon. And if you play the games, you will meet this creature in Velen in one of the best quests of the games, if you ask me. But the creature in the game is not exactly the same as the creature described in folklore. The Botchlings are believed to come into existence from stillborn fetuses, unwanted or miscarried. But they could also come from improper burial of remains of children who had died during their infancy. And because they died young, they were extremely powerful. Their potential of unrealized life made them the most fearsome creatures. They became terrible demons. They were small deformed creatures and they fed on the blood of expecting mothers. And this sometimes led the mothers to miscarry their babies. But there was a way to turn this demon into something good. You could turn the Botchling into a guardian spirit. In the Witcher legend, you had to bury a Botchling under the family's threshold and perform a ritual. You had to give the Botchling a proper name and then it would be kind and helpful. In the Polish folklore, the Lubberkin is known as a klobuk and as a guardian spirit who takes care of the household. After turning, it would become ghost-like and looked like a human baby. It would protect the family and guide the family during difficult times. I have another Slavic creature from Poland for you, and it is known as the Noonwraith, and in Polish it is known as the Poludnika or Lady Midday. She appears in the fields at the hottest hour of the day. She is described as a pale, ghostly woman in white. But why is she in the fields? Well, she has it out for the farmers. Poor farmers. She would strike farmers with heat strokes, paralysis or madness. But if she had a bad mood, she would just kill them. It is believed that these stories were told to prevent people from overworking in the heat of the sun, especially during the harvest season. In the Witcher world, the Noonwraiths are spirits of women who died violently or tragically, often in fields or due to betrayal. They wander near the sites of their death, also at the hottest hour of the day, which is most of the time midday. They are bound to the earth until their torment is resolved. It is very difficult to fight one. You have to attack her with your witcher signs or trap her inside a magic circle. And the Noonwraith is one of the most tragic monsters. It is a victim of injustice who is turned into something evil. It is a very interesting monster because it often has a very interesting backstory. And Geralt has to learn the backstory to lift the curse. Okay, the next monster is the most annoying monster in the Witcher universe, if you ask me. They are always chasing me under the water, and they always pull me under when I'm trying to catch my breath. I'm talking about drowners. The drowners are inspired by Slavic and Germanic water demons. In Czech and Slavic they call them vodnik, and it is a water spirit that lives in rivers and ponds. They drag people to their deaths, and they place their souls in jars. In Scandinavian mythology they are called Noks. In their stories, the Noks are shape-shifting water beings that lure humans into the water with music. And that really sounds a little bit similar to the mermaids, although I think they are not as pretty as the mermaids. But in the end, all these myths serve the same purpose. The stories warned people about the dangers of water. In the world of The Witcher, drowners are one of the most common creatures you can encounter in the continent. They are described as bloated, decayed humanoids lurking in rivers, lakes and swamps. There is hardly any chance that you can escape an encounter with them. They attack in packs, and they can either kill you on land or in the water. They feed on corpses, and they kill the living while they are hungry. They are not intelligent, but because they attack in packs, they are very dangerous. The next creature might surprise you, because Andrzej Sapkowski totally reimagined this one. It's the Kikimora. And if you remember it from The Witcher, you probably think that it is an insectoid predator, but the Kikimora from Slavic culture is something else. She is a female house spirit and often described as the wife of the domovoi, or in Russian stories the Leshen. Once a Kikimora is inside your house, it's hard to get rid of her. Her appearance can also differ. Sometimes she has a snout of a dog, a chicken beak, or she could look like a goat-like entity. The only thing that always stays the same is that she is a woman. Sometimes a young one, sometimes an old one, or sometimes she looks like a deceased family member. And the Kikimora has two sides. She can either help you or hurt you. If you are on her bad side, she can suffocate you while you are sleeping or scare little children with nightmares. She is associated with illness, sleep paralysis, and domestic misfortune. There are stories where, according to legends, the Kikimora enters a room through keyholes or cracks. Then she would sit on people's chests while they were sleeping. But in the world of The Witcher, she is nothing like that. I'm not even sure if it is a female creature. In the world of The Witcher, she is more like this. A spider-like creature who lives in swamps and caves. I'm not afraid of spiders, so they are dangerous ambush predators, hunting in packs, with chitinous armor and venomous fangs. It hardly has any similarities to the Kikimora house spirits. The only thing that they have in common is their name, and that they are both very dangerous. On to the next region of the world. I already mentioned some myths, legends and folklore of this part of the world. But let's focus on creatures who can trace their origins back to the German and Middle European folklore and legends, including the myths and legends from my own country. We will start with our furry friends, the werewolves. I already made a video about the werewolves last year for my Halloween special, So if you want a more detailed story, you can check that video out. I will put it in the description. And even though we know that werewolves are creatures from folklore and legends, 200 years ago people truly believed that werewolves were real. It is still a popular legend that inspires many modern stories. Human transformation is something that intrigues us because it's something we can't comprehend. According to the legend, a werewolf was a human who could shapeshift into a wolf, or in some cases it could become a hybrid human wolf. They would never transform during the day, only at night or during a full moon. You could become a werewolf if you were bitten or scratched by one. There were even werewolf trials during the medieval periods. This was during the time when people believed that vampirism and witchcraft were real as well. Nowadays we believe that they believed in such things because they tried to comprehend why people would kill other people. Especially if they were serial killers, because that was seen as very animal-like. Newsflash, humans are also animals. They were looking for a reason why a human would do such a monstrous thing. So they thought perhaps that person turned into a monster himself, otherwise he wouldn't do things like that. And in this case that would be a werewolf. And since you would forget what you had done when you would turn into a human again, nobody would believe you even if you were innocent. In the world of The Witcher, the werewolf is almost the same. But in the world of The Witcher, it is also possible that you were born a werewolf if both of your parents or one of your parents was a werewolf. Or you could be cursed to become one by a magic spell. If you were bitten, there was a chance that you would become a werewolf, but it was a small one. You could be cured of your werewolf form if you were not born as one. If you were born as a werewolf, you were able to control your shape-shifting abilities, which meant that you could stay human if you wanted to. If someone was turned into a werewolf, they were often not able to control the wolf inside them, and they would slaughter without a second thought. Killing them is very difficult because they can regenerate instantly. Only a silver sword can harm them. And if they would come to their senses, they often felt very guilty for their actions, which made it a very difficult dilemma for Geralt. Does he kill them because they killed other people, or does he show mercy and cure them? So, have you ever heard of the word doppelganger? It means double goer, and it's a creature from German folklore. It is a ghostly or supernatural double of a living person. Nowadays, if we see someone who looks like us, we think it's funny, but back in the day, they saw it as a bad omen. It could mean misfortune or death. Thank God I haven't seen one of my doppelgangers yet. In myths, they didn't always shapeshift at will. If they did, they were there to confuse you, or sometimes they would trick other people into believing that they were the original version of you. In Sapkowski's world, the Dopplers are seen as changelings. They can copy anything. Your appearance, your mannerisms, your voice, and even your scent. And most of the time, these Dopplers didn't mean any harm. They are actually very misunderstood in the world of The Witcher. They are hunted and feared by the humans. They think that they are dangerous and unnatural. One of Geralt's friends is a Doppler and his name is Dudu. He helps Geralt and uses his shapeshift abilities for good. Next up is the main antagonist of the Witcher books and of the third Witcher game, which also has its name in it. It is the Wild Hunt, also known in Dutch as Wilde Jacht, in German as Wontende Heer, and in Nordic stories as the Asgardrian. They are found in Dutch, German, Nordic and Celtic traditions. The name already gives it away. They are ghostly processions of warriors and hunters, often seen riding across the night sky, accompanied by hounds. They can bring storms, death and misfortune. In Norse myths, it was sometimes led by the all-god Odin. And in Germanic tales, it was led by a spectral king or a god of the dead. If you would see the wild hunt, it was a sign that your days were over. They would bring death or take you to the underworld. In the story of The Witcher, the wild hunt consists of elves from the Ain El world. They would wear armor and ride skeletal horses. Everywhere they would ride, they would bring frost and death. In the games and in the books of The Witcher, they are pursuing Ciri for her powers because she is a child of the Elder Blood. If you carry the gene of someone with Elder Blood, you are capable of immense power. You can travel through space and time, which is an ability that the Ain El elves have lost and want to regain, no matter the cost. The following monster is not as dangerous as the other monsters I mentioned. It's the Nekker. And the Nekker is a monster that is easily defeated. In real life folklore, the Nekker is also known as the Nixie or the Nok. It is a water spirit that looks like a goblin. In folklore, they are also able to shapeshift into humans or horses. This way they can lure victims into the lakes and drown them. They are tricksters and especially love to drown children. In Dutch and Flemish folklore, the Nekkers are very similar to the drowners. They are seen as malevolent water goblins that drown people in lakes and canals. And fun fact, if we say in Dutch, het nekt mij, it necks me, it means that it almost kills you or that you are very tired. And neck is this, of course, so it's like, it necked me. Fun fact. In the world of The Witcher, they are also small goblin-like figures. They live in packs and infest forests, caves and swamps. From these places they attack in packs. They are not strong when they fight alone, so only in large numbers they stand a chance against their opponent. They infest villages and Geralt is hired to kill them all and make sure that the villages are safe to live again. The next creature is very well known because it inspires many teen fantasy novels, although the creature in the Witcher universe isn't as romantic. I'm talking about vampires and higher vampires specifically. Although they share similarities with the classical vampires that we know, there are some differences. The vampires that we would describe are mostly a mix of Slavic, Balkan and European folklore. And we would probably describe them like they were described in an 18th century Gothic novel. At first the vampires were rotting corpses that spread diseases. They drank blood and they were only active at night. Not as romantic as you might think. They were either cursed humans or mindless predators. All they cared about was feeding on the blood of the innocent. In the world of The Witcher, the vampires are divided into two categories. You have the lesser vampires and the higher vampires. Vampires are a species from another dimension that came to the continent during the conjunction of the spheres, which basically was an event where all the worlds of The Witcher collided and formed the new continent. And this conjunction of the spheres is very mysterious because we still don't know everything about it if you have read all the books. And these vampires are immortal and very, very, very hard to kill. Especially the higher vampires, because they could walk in the sunlight, and if you would kill them, they were able to regenerate. If you would tear them to pieces, they were still able to fully recover. But the worse the injury, the longer it would take. It could take 100 years for some of them to regenerate. They also don't need blood to live. They only drink it for their own pleasure, but they are still drawn to it. They have a different appearance, but they can copy the look of a human, and they are able to use the power of hypnosis, of invisibility, and of telepathy. Some famous examples of higher vampires are Emil Regis, who is a friend to Geralt both in the books and in the third game. I'm not sure if he's in the other games, correct me if I'm wrong. And he is one of my favorite characters. And one of my favorite antagonists, who also has a Dutch last name, Detlef van der Eretijn, who terrorizes Toussaint in the expansion game Blood and Wine. He is both tragic and monstrous. And that's what I mean when I say that I really love the complicity of the games and the books. Everyone has a light and dark side to them. Nobody is truly evil or truly kind and nice. And that's just amazing, because that's also how it works in the real world, even though not everyone believes that. You can't categorize the higher vampire further, but the lesser vampires are different from one another. The Gladders, Kikimoras, Catechans and the Bruxa. And the last one in particular is one I'd like to mention. The word Bruxa comes from Portuguese and Galician, and it literally means witch or female sorcerer. She is a vampiric woman who drinks blood, shapeshifts and preys on infants or travelers. The Striga that I mentioned before is often compared to the Bruxa. They share similar traits. In the world of The Witcher, the Bruxa looks a lot like a human female. Most of the time a young version of a female. She is super fast and she can dodge almost every attack. Her screams are ultrasonic and can disorient, knock you down or kill you. Her voice can influence your mind and drive you crazy. She feeds on blood, she is very intelligent, and she can speak our language. When you think of mythology, the first thing that probably comes to your mind is the mythology from Greece. But maybe it's my head who thinks like that, because if you have watched many of my videos, you know I'm obsessed with Greek myths. But apparently Andrzej Sapkowski was also inspired by Greek myths. From sirens in the Skelligan seas, to harpies in the mountain ruins, and dragons with ancient wisdom. They are all essential to the world of The Witcher. One of the most well-known creatures is the Basilisk. The word originates from the Greek basilikos, which means little king. It's a snake-like creature and it can cause death when you look into its eyes. The basilisk was seen as the snake king, and it knew many shapes and forms. In some stories it was a snake, in others a dragon-like snake, and sometimes it had the head of a chicken. There are even stories from Europe where the basilisk terrorized towns and killed citizens. Even Pliny the Elder, a very famous Roman writer, wrote about the existence of the basilisk. But it's unlikely that the basilisk existed. It is believed that people use the story of the basilisk as a metaphor for sin. If you would be corrupted by the influence of evil, or if you would become too proud, you would have the same deadly gaze as the basilisk. In The Witcher, the basilisk looks more like the dragon-like figure instead of the snake. They live in arid, rocky environments and they are very territorial. Their breath is deadly and they can attack you from the sky. And if we are talking about dragon-like figures who can fly, we can't skip the dragons. And there are many different dragon-like figures in the world of The Witcher and even in our own world. So therefore I can't tell you everything in this video, but I promise you that I will make a video about dragons one day. But for now I will explain a little bit about them. Dragons are one of the oldest and most widespread myths on Earth. In Japan, China, but also in Europe and Africa, they are very popular even nowadays. There are many writers who use them in their epic fantasies, and I can really understand why. It's actually one of my favorites, if not my favorite mythological creature, especially after I read A Song of Ice and Fire. The word dragon comes from the Greek word drakon, which means serpent. And if you think about it, the dragon does have some serpent-like traits, like the tail, his scales and his eyes. But in many descriptions they also have horns, ears, long and sharp teeth, wings, and 2 or 4 legs. And of course, they can spit fire. They are intelligent and cunning, and sometimes they can even communicate with humans. They often guard treasures or act as obstacles for heroes. In Greek myths, the dragons guard the golden apples and the golden fleece. And dragons also love gold, so that explains it. In Welsh and British myth, the red dragon became their national emblem. It was a prophecy by Merlin of the red and white dragons fighting that caused this. And of course there's also the story of George and the dragon. In Slavic folklore, the dragon is called a Smee or a Smee. I probably said it all wrong. And it's a multi-headed dragon or serpent, often fought by knights and princes, which is quite similar to the heroic stories from other parts of Europe. In the world of The Witcher, you have 2 types of dragons. You have the true dragons, who are quite similar to the dragons I just mentioned. They are very rare, wise, and worth protecting. And you also have the draconids. They are dangerous but animalistic, and they are not really evil masterminds. They kill without any specific reason, and therefore the people want them dead. The true dragons were among the first creatures that were bestowed with intelligence. They ruled the continent for centuries. They preferred solitary lives, or they would seek a lifelong partner. Eventually, other creatures came to the continent, and one of their biggest foes would become the dwarf. Dwarves are known as creatures who mine minerals and precious gems. And as I mentioned before, dragons love shiny things, so therefore they became their enemies. The dragons come in many different colors and types: green, black, red, white, and the rarer golden dragon. Some dragons can turn into a human and infiltrate their world. In one Witcher story, a golden dragon named Vilentremer, also known as Borch Tree Jackdaw, goes on a dragon hunt with Geralt and a group of hunters, including some of Geralt's friends. It is his way to protect his own offspring and test Geralt's morality. Eventually, Geralt decides that they have to protect these dragons instead of hunting them, at least in this case. There's also a character named Saskia, the Dragon of Aedirn. She is a character in the Witcher games. She walks around as a human, and she is one of Vilentremer's offspring. The other class is a class of lesser dragon-shaped monsters. You have the Wyvern, who is 2-legged, winged, and lives on cliffs and coasts. Then you have the Forktail, who is sleeker, faster, and loves to ambush prey from above. And other species like the Cockatrice, who looks like a rooster, and a Slizzard, who is more aggressive than wyverns. Let's go to our final destination, into the deserts and holy cities. Because even our religions have their monsters. And these monsters also found their way into the world of The Witcher. One myth from a faraway country is the myth of the Djinn. It comes from pre-Islamic Arabian mythology and later Islamic tradition. They are supernatural beings created from smokeless fire. They inhabit a world that's parallel to our world. They can be benevolent or malevolent. They can trick you or they can protect you. They can also grant you wishes, but be careful what you wish for. Make sure that your wish is clear and cannot be twisted in any way. They love to teach humans a lesson, that they shouldn't meddle with powers that they don't understand. The genie in the lamp that we know of, especially because of stories like Aladdin, is a more modern and simplified version of the Djinn. The Djinn from old stories is much darker and a cautionary tale. In the Witcher universe, the Djinn is also very dangerous. If you would summon them without any knowledge of what you are doing, it would end in disaster. The most famous story is the story from The Last Wish. In this story, Geralt and Dandelion accidentally release a Djinn. Chaos almost kills them, but Geralt is able to calm the Djinn down. Eventually, with Geralt's final wish, he binds his faith with that of the sorceress Yennefer of Vengerberg. Their lives are now forever connected. In a quest in The Witcher 3, you can hunt this Djinn down to see if the love between Geralt and Yennefer is true or fabricated by the Djinn. Here you can decide if you want Geralt to still love Yennefer or if the love between them was not real. The choice is yours. Another creature from Arabic folklore is the ghoul. In Islamic stories, the ghoul is a desert-dwelling demon or shapeshifter that lures travelers off the road. After that, he kills them and devours their flesh. The name ghoul means to seize. They are also linked to graveyards and cannibalism. If a corpse was missing, people used to blame it on the ghouls. In some stories they can use a glamour to appear as someone you trust. In other stories they look animal-like, but it differs. They can be male or female, but most of the time they are female and they lure male victims into their traps. The ghoul in European stories, especially in Gothic fiction, was changed to fit the European climate. Here the ghoul doesn't live in a desert, because there are no deserts in Europe, but in graveyards. There it could easily find a corpse to eat. In The Witcher, the ghoul is not a very intelligent creature and it also hunts in packs. You can find them in places where people have died, especially in graveyards, battlefields and mass graves. And if there are no corpses to be found, they would just simply set their eyes on someone who comes too close to them. Their appearance in the story is a leathery grey skin, glowing eyes and long claws and fangs. You could say that they are the rats among the monsters. And not even in death you are safe from these monsters. We are nearing the end of this video, but we can't end this video without taking a look to a very seductive and morally grey creature. It's the Succubus, a creature from Jewish, Christian and older Mesopotamian lore. A female demon that visits men at night, seduces them and drains their life force or seed. The word succubus comes from medieval Latin and means to lie beneath. There's also the incubus, which is the male counterpart of the succubus, and that creature preys on women. These myths were often used to explain sleep paralysis, also known as night terrors, and unexpected pregnancies in the Middle Ages. Because not everyone was the Virgin Mary, and if you had a little bit too much fun with someone other than your husband, or if you were single, of course you weren't even allowed to have fun, you had to come up with an explanation. I wish we could still use that one now, but we can't. But at least it's more acceptable now. The succubus is portrayed as a beautiful and sexually aggressive demon. Dangerous because she tempts and kills. Yet still men fall for this trap and pay the ultimate price. In the world of The Witcher, the succubus gets a more nuanced treatment. Their appearance is a little bit different. She has horns, hooves and a tail. She is witty and independent, strong, fast, but as charming as the succubus from our world. She only kills if she has no other choice. She's not only evil, she's also human in a way. Therefore, Geralt has to think twice if he wants to kill her or not. We've only scratched the surface of the Witcher Bestiary, and the origin it has in our stories. But Geralt himself has probably not even slayed every beast in the continent, and Geralt's story isn't told in one book. So perhaps a part 2 is coming your way. For now, I really hope that you enjoyed learning more about the monsters in the Witcher universe. I love the world of The Witcher. I just bought the new book, you can see it there. And I still have to read it, so I'm gonna read it this weekend, I think. And I can't wait for the new game where Ciri is the protagonist of the game. It looks amazing from what I've seen. And I also hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please toss a coin, which means give a like to the video. That would mean a lot to me. And comment underneath this video which monster you want me to talk about in the next video. And I also really hope that you enjoyed my videos for this spooky season. I uploaded 5 of them. I put them in a list and you can check that list at the end of this video. It will show up, so then you can click on it and subscribe to my channel if you like it even more. For now, keep your silver sharp and don't stray from the path. Or if that's too scary for you, just play some Gwent. And you know it, wind's howling. See you soon. Bye.
Toss a coin to your